Okay, welcome to a short and improvised video that I'm doing with Matt Liberty from OpenROAD. How are you doing, Matt?
Great. Great to be with you, Matt.
Yeah, so we first met through your work in OpenROAD, and then I had you on the Open Tapeout conference where you actually did a demo of the OpenROAD GUI,
Yep.
um, and that's what we're going to be looking at today. So it's it had some problems with running inside OpenLane, which is not obviously not your fault.
Yeah.
um, but it's not something that I'm particularly familiar with, and so we just organised this call so that we could talk through some of the features and some of the use cases for the OpenROAD GUI. The first thing that I thought would be interesting to know, which I don't know whether this is something that we can use the OpenROAD GUI for or not, but say if I've got something where I've got a failure in OpenLane, because that's how I'm
Mhm.
running it, um, is there a way that I can use the OpenROAD GUI to kind of debug that?
You should be able to. I am also less of an open lane expert, but the GUI can
Mm,
open, as long as you save the design at any step of the flow, you
yeah,
should be able to open that result and look at it within the GUI.
yeah. So
Um,
I ran this command, and by default, OpenLane creates a tag of the current time and date.
mm,
So then I can open, and you can get that from uh, the log messages, and then I can give it the dash GUI and the dash tag. That was the key suggestion that you gave me that meant that I was able to open it, and then that does open the OpenROAD GUI. And then I'm
okay.
kind of so now I'm here, but I'm a bit lost.
Well, so at this point, what step did you fail? Was it pre-placement? I'm guessing you have a design, but nothing's actually been placed yet.
Yes, it's I deliberately made the floor plan too small.
Okay.
So
So in this
I
case, yeah, for placement issues, it's going to be a little harder because there's not much to see because the design's not actually been placed.
okay.
Um, there is a set of sort of developer debugs that let you visualize placement as it's happening, and you can kind of
Mhm.
see if it's overly congested. It was this case that it's sort of, you made the floor plan deliberately too small, so it just doesn't
Yeah,
fit.
yeah.
Um, that one's going to be a little harder. And
Okay.
there's less to see just because really you're saying put too much in too small a space.
Mhm.
So it's not a question of exactly how you place the objects. There's just not enough room.
Okay. So
Um,
if I go back then and let's rerun this.
I think
Uh,
the classic one where people use a lot is routing congestion, where you've sort of
yeah.
placed it and then you can't get through global routing or detailed routing. Those ones are often easy to debug in the GUI.
Let's increase this a bit and see what
Okay,
happens.
sure.
It's quite a small design, so it shouldn't take too long. And what I'll do this time is I'll tag it with OpenRoads GUI so that it's
Yep,
always going to use the same
right.
tag now.
Yeah, that's what I usually do as well.
Yeah. Okay. So we get a fail on number of pin placements this time. Is that something
Okay.
that was it is it worth opening it up again, or shall I keep
Again, I
on?
think that one is also just you have too many pins for the size of your block, so they can't fit around the edge. So you probably need a little bit more space to get past that. I guess you'll be doing a bunch of editing now. Um,
Oh, look, it's
Mm.
whoa. I think that's because I didn't give it the overwrite tag.
yeah,
There we go. Okay. So, and what are the files that OpenRoad GUI loads? Are they OpenDB files?
right. It loads the OpenDB files. Now, not everything is stored in OpenDB, so you generally need to reread your time constraints and your Liberty
Mhm,
files because they are not officially part of the database.
mhm.
So anything open parasitics would be another one for OpenSTA. That's why it's having the dash GUI flag is convenient because it will read all the necessary files in for you. Whereas if you do it sort of just start it by hand and say read DB, um, you'll have something if you only want to look at physical design, that's fine. But if you want to look at timing, you'll be missing all the setup for your timing. So that's where it's helpful to have the GUI flag.
Okay. Yeah. So, one question for you: if I run this command again, it's not going to rebuild it all, is it? It's going to.
It
Um,
isn't, although I don't know if you need overwrite at this point because I don't know if
okay.
I don't think it will overwrite, but there's no need for it. You just want to load what's there.
Yeah. Okay. Nice.
There we are.
Okay. So yeah, let's maybe we can take a look at some of the. Well, what do you think is interesting to have a look at then?
Well, why don't we play with the heat maps first? There are
Okay.
on your display controls at the bottom. There's a little twist tab. There's 4 choices. We can just kind of go through them. Placement density tells you, you can see here where the object's located, where it's a density. Often high placement density can also correlate with routing congestion, but it's a separate control. These are toggles. And then power density, this is estimating where the power is drawn. Of course, it will tend to be where your instances are, but different instances have different power draws depending on their activity. So you can see there's sort of a hot spot right in the middle there.
Yeah.
Each of these ones that are underlined, they also have a corresponding display control. If you click on the word power density, it'll pop up a little dialog box that lets you choose various settings like the scale and such. If you want to give it a try.
Oh, double click. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, double click it. Yeah. So you can choose various choices. Each of these have their own sort of specific configurations.
Yeah.
You can
So I
change
could
the corner.
change
You can
this
turn on
grid.
the legend or the numbers if you want sort of absolute values rather than just relative. So that kind of gives you the ability to fine tune what you're seeing.
Yeah. Okay, only default corner loaded at the moment.
Yeah. But if you turn on show legend, that one might be useful, just right in the middle there.
Okay, yeah, nice.
Scale. And if you do show numbers and like on any individual area, if you zoom in, it'll show you exactly what the numbers are for that.
Okay. Yeah, so we can see this 1.54.
Right. So it corresponds to the color coding, but if you want to be quantitative, it gives you the ability to do that.
Nice.
Right. Routing congestion is probably the most popular one, just because it's often where people have trouble. And here you can see there's kind of a odd spot of congestion in one area. Again, there are kind of controls that let you choose. Do you want to see by layer? You want to double click routing congestion rather than power density for this one. And you can choose to see, horizontal versus vertical congestion. You can see this case it's mostly vertical congestion right there, or by specific layers. You choose those two, need to match up. Not much on metal 5, but you can see it's on metal 4 congested, and so on. That kind of gives you, and again, there are numbers and legends, and you can kind of play with all the different controls. But this lets you, often if you get the message where it says routing congestion too high, couldn't route, that kind of dreaded message, this is a helpful tool to say, well, where is it that it couldn't route? Gives you an idea. Also worth mentioning that we do write out, there's a congestion report, which you can load into the viewer if there are actual failures and see exactly where it failed. And sometimes on a small design, it's not so bad, but on a very large design, those little spots can get pretty small and it's hard to spot where the congestion is. That viewer can be helpful for that.
Cool.
So that's kind of, And the last one's IR drop, which is, I think you actually have to run PSM to get that because we don't store it in the database.
All right.
But if you run the analyze power command, you can get where's your power grid have IR drop.
Okay. So is that something I can do from the GUI?
We don't have a menu choice for it, but you can from the tickle commands run analyze, and it has command completion here, which is quite handy. And I think if you give a space and dash, it'll give you the options.
Oh yeah.
Pop-ups of dash net, I think just VDD or VSS. If that's the name of your VDD net, I don't know your design, but yeah. Maybe it's uppercase VDD. I don't know.
Yeah. ECCD1. Where am I? Cool.
Okay. And maybe we just turn IR drop off and on. Let's just see, maybe it didn't needs to be woken up. No. That's interesting. Well, maybe that's one for me to figure out.
Yeah, okay.
Where you see that, no, you should have IR drop at that point. Okay,
Yeah.
well, let's take that one offline. I'll have to figure out
Yeah.
what
Okay.
I'm not getting. Or maybe just that you have so little that you
Could
just
be
don't
that
see
there's so
anything.
little that it didn't see anything. Yeah.
Maybe that's what's happening. Oh, it's the layer. If you change the layer to maybe one of your other metal layers,
Metal 4.
there we go.
There we go.
I forgot it has a layer control. So that's your drop by layer.
So if I go to metal 1, I can see where
Right.
the horizontal.
Yeah. It just defaulted to Li1, which was sort of the problem.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Nothing on that central bar. That's interesting.
Yeah. Perhaps you have a power stripe.
Yeah, I've got a power stripe right there. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where you got the least drop. And then it kind of increases. Although the numbers are all 600 microvolts, pretty small.
Yeah.
That's such a little design.
It's a very small design. Yeah. Okay. Okay. And then we've got maybe what else would be is like the most useful thing to show people?
Sure. Why don't we turn off the IR drop just so it's not confusing?
Yeah.
So you can, let's say if you want to see your power grid, since we were just talking about it, you could turn off clock and signal. You just uncheck those two.
Yeah. Okay.
And you'll see just those are only the elements that are part of the power grid. So that's kind of one way to inspect the power grid. This is, again, a pretty simple grid, but that if you have macros, you can get more complicated little channels between macros. The grid gets more involved. I think that's one. Also, you talked about wanting to see the clock tree. We can go the other way. We could turn on clock.
Actually, one other thing that would be interesting is there a way of like tracing a net?
Yes, for sure. Why don't we turn on a signal net, because power is not very interesting to trace. Zoom in on any net you like.
Could I give a name? And we search.
You can do it by name if you want. There's a find option.
Okay, so find,
and then type. And then you'll change the type from instance to net, which is looking for net.
Yeah. Okay.
So you see it's in the upper left. You can also see on the right the inspector is now popped up and giving you information about it.
Yeah. Oops.
So one convenience for this in the inspector, you see there's a set of icons near the bottom. The second from the right, there's a little magnifying glass. If you hit that guy, it just jumps you right to it.
Yeah, great.
Yes. So that will zoom to. If you tap route guides, it might also be interesting. It'll show you what the global router planned for that net.
Okay.
That's that was the global routing. You can see the detail router. It was pretty easy net. It just followed it.
Yeah.
But if you tap route guides again, it turns it off. It's just a toggle. But that can be useful if you're debugging global routing, or even detail routing. Why did this net take this path? You can see what did the global router say, and then you can see what the detail router did and how they compare.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you can also, in the inspector on the right, you see it says I terms and B terms, and they're kind of blue links. You can actually click on those, and the inspector will kind of move to that object. So you can walk through the net list this way. It takes you to that I term. If you click on the instance, right, you can see where it's going. As you mouse over it, it highlights, and as you click on it, the inspector moves. Those are all your clock buff ones in the design. And then you can see the pins and the nets, and you can kind of keep going, right? You could say, well, its output is net 1. You could click on that net. You could kind of walk through your net list strictly from here. So that kind of gives you the ability to trace your net list through the inspector. And then on each object, it gives you information. You can go to the access points on a specific pin where the router think it can access it.
I like the way you can go back as well. That's very useful.
Yes. Yeah, it's handy.
Yeah. So this looks like it's driving a load of these clock buffs.
So if you clock buff itself is just showing you all the instances. It doesn't mean necessarily connected together. Because that's the master.
Oh, okay.
You highlight the master, it says who are all the instances of this master.
Okay.
And that's everything that's in the module top, which is everything in your design. It looks to be flat. So yeah, that's kind of gives you a quick walk through the netlist, and the inspector, I guess other features, the little flashlight looking one is highlight.
Just to give you some info on this, on the design here,
Sure.
that active line basically comes down and controls um, like I don't know, 100 tri-state buffers.
Mhm. Right.
So would it be like is there a way that we could trace that net that fans out to all those tri-state buffers?
Well,
Or
it's
is that
been
going to be
buffered. So that one net has been fractured into many nets
yeah,
through the buffer tree. So you could
yeah,
sort of walk through the tree as we've been doing piece
one
by
by
piece
one?
there, but there
Mm,
isn't at least currently, a way to say, show me everything that's buffer connected,
mhm.
but that would be an interesting feature. You could certainly ask for
Yeah.
that. Um, you could also open the design at an earlier state in the flow pre-buffering, and then that net
Okay.
you would see it in its full glory. But at this point, it's been
Yeah.
turned into a buffer tree.
Mhm. Okay. And how would we open the design, like, put earlier in the flow?
That is something I know how to do in OpenROAD flow scripts. I don't know in OpenLane if there's an
Okay.
equivalent thing.
All right.
Um,
Okay. Maybe let's move
Certainly
on to the
readDB would let you just open the layout of any step.
mhm.
But again, if you want sort of the timing piece of it, you have to then load the other pieces yourself.
Okay.
Uh,
You wanted to mention this torch thing.
yeah, that lets you attach a permanent highlight to that net. So if you just click it on, or whatever the
Mhm.
object is, right? That way, if you're sort of, that's the thing of interest, you can mark it, because the inspector is kind of transient. So if you want to
Mhm.
sort of flag certain objects, you can flag them, and then they will stay with that highlight color.
Okay.
I sometimes do that, say, if you want to, you're looking at hold buffering, you can say, find me all the hold buffers and then mark them in a certain color.
Mhm.
And then they just kind of clear where they
And
are in
it
the layout.
stays where they are there. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. And it's kind of says groups. Um, I think maybe for the inspector, that's covers most of the key points. We could look at the timing report. Maybe that's
And
another interesting.
here's the clock tree.
Yep.
If I click highlight, can I add that to
You don't have the tree actually selected. That's only
okay.
displaying it. Um, I would say there's two things you could do that makes that a little more obvious. One is you could turn off the instances. That way you can sort of see just the tree.
Ah, yeah. Yeah,
That
that's
can help.
nice. Yeah.
If you, for like, you still have that guide up there. If you right click in the layout, I'll just show you another useful feature. There's a little pop-up menu
Mhm.
that comes
Oh,
up.
yeah. Yeah.
So you can do all these things. Under clear, you can choose to clear route guides or clear all, and that'll
Okay, yeah.
unselect it. So that way, you'll say, yes, that's your clock tree. Because we're doing clock tree, if you go up to the Windows menu and you choose, your version's slightly too old, I guess. I don't see a clock tree viewer. Okay, well, in a newer version, there would be a clock tree viewer that lets you
Okay.
actually see it more in a time-oriented display rather than a geometry-oriented display.
Okay. Yeah, and you mentioned we can actually load timing reports in here.
Right, so if you see right below the inspector, there's a set of tabs. You see one's timing
Mhm.
report, which is also on the Windows menu. If you
Mhm.
just click update in the upper right, it should set up the timing.
Mhm.
And if you click on a path, those are all your setup paths. And if you select one of them, it will show you
Okay.
where
Oh,
the
that's
path is
freaky,
and what
yeah.
goes through the layout. So
That's
the
cool.
top half is sort of a list of paths, and then the
Yeah.
bottom half is the detail per path of the path that you're currently selected. So you can
Okay.
walk through that piece by piece. This window, oftentimes I want to undock and make bigger just because it can be a lot of data for a small view, or you can, all these widgets are dockable or resizable. So you can do that as well if you need
Drag
sort of more
that
space.
off.
Drag that off, make it bigger.
Yeah.
You can also just make the side panel space larger too. This is just a divider. So, but that makes it a little easier to see what's going on, especially if you're
Yeah.
on like a big window display where you can kind of put this to the
Okay.
side. Yeah, so that lets you see your timing paths.
Just
And
trying to
if you
count
want,
how many pixels the drag bar is. I think we've probably got like
oh,
5 or
it's
6
reasonable.
pixels. Yeah.
You can just close the
Oh,
hierarchy browser too. It's the little X on the far.
I
It's
was using a program the other day that had like literally just 1 pixel where you could pick up the divider.
it seems to be set by your windowing system. Like it's
Okay.
not something in OpenROAD we set. I kind of sometimes want to make it bigger myself. I find it a
Yeah.
little hard to grab the
Yeah.
edges.
Okay. All right. And what's the hierarchy browser?
If you have Verilog hierarchy in your design, you don't have what one looks like in this design. After synthesis, it's probably been flattened, but
Yeah,
it
it's
will
been
let you
flattened.
see the Verilog hierarchy and it will overlay sort of what's physically within each logical module, where it is physically on the chip, which can
Okay.
be interesting. But this design looks to have been flat, so you only have the one module. There's
Yeah.
not much hierarchy to see.
Okay, yeah.
But that is kind of useful for more of a hierarchical design flow.
Combinational.
There's anything else we should cover?
Whoa, that's interesting. Never seen one like that before.
That's whatever's in the left abstract. Yeah, that is interesting. Well, if you click on it, it's and 3. And yeah,
No, don't.
somebody's
I'm pretty sure
put
they
in
don't look like that.
far too much detail.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it's like a lithography simulation.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Anything else we should have a look at?
Trying to think of any. Let me think if there's. We did the command completion. This design probably routed clean, but there is also a DRC viewer if you have routing violations. I'll just mention it on the Windows menu. DRC viewer,
Yeah.
and then there's a load button, and you would load the
Okay.
report from Triton Route at that point, and it will show you the markers on the layout, where are the violations, and more, what type of violation is it, and so forth, between what nets or objects.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's something that I typically do with it. I load the XML file with KLayout, but I'll try it with the OpenROAD GUI next time.
I think
Great.
that one's good.
Okay.
I guess one other thing you can do, it's just worth knowing, is you can create custom buttons on the toolbar that execute whatever you want them to do. So there's not a GUI way to do it. It's a tickle command. So there's create _toolbar _button as a, if you go down to the tickle commands, right? That guy. And let's just give it, you can give it dash text. This would be sort of the name of the button, like, whatever you want to do. And then you can give dash script, whatever you want it to execute. So I usually put just like in curly braces, I'll put SMAT just as a simple example.
Okay.
This is basically just tickle that's going to get executed.
Like that?
Yep. Should do it.
Okay.
And now you see the button up on the toolbar called
yeah,
MAT.
yeah.
And if you click it, you see in the output window.
Yeah.
But what's nice is the GUI itself has scripting. So for example, you can turn on and off the display controls. So I have like a personal button that just says, if I want to see the power grid, turns off all the other nets. So you can script that up. Or if I want to, have some specific visibility settings that I like I only want to see the instances and I don't want to see any of the routing. You can make a button that does that for you. So you can, or if you're making a demo, right, you can have a set of buttons that you walk through the buttons and they do the steps of your demo.
Okay.
It's kind of just lets you customize the GUI to how you like. You can OpenROAD at initialization, when it starts up, reads a .openroad file from your home directory. So you can stick a bunch of those commands in there, and then whenever you pop up the GUI, your personal buttons are there. So it can be handy. You can also add menu choices. There's a sort of similar set of things. It's all described in the GUI README in OpenROAD. What are the sort of available GUI commands? Of course, it doesn't have to be a GUI command. You create a button that just says route my design, and it calls detail route. So it's just arbitrary tickle code executed from your button.
Right.
So I think that was a little more advanced, but it can be helpful if you're doing.
Yeah.
I don't know if people
Okay.
care about rulers. Rulers is another one.
For
If you
measuring
want to
things.
measure dimensions, it's very similar to K-Layout's rulers if you use theirs. It's right. Hotkey is K, and you can. It has snap too as well. So
Hmm.
if you zoom in, oh, it's left click for actually creating a ruler. So go back to ruler, and then you left click, you can see it.
Okay. Yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
that can sometimes be helpful if you want to
Yeah.
get the size of something.
Exactly. Yeah.
And those can
Nice.
be turned on and off in the display controls. They can be cleared. They can be selected in the inspector. They're just objects in the database or in the
Mm.
GUI version of the database. Um,
Okay.
yeah, I think that's kind of the main pieces of the GUI. And yeah, when you get the newer version, there's a clock tree viewer. This is just GCD. It's a fairly simple, kind of like SPM, nothing exciting.
Hmm.
But this is the clock tree viewer, and it's sort of showing you the clock tree in time. So your signal, clock arrives at
Yeah.
your block. It goes through various levels of buffering on its way down to. I just kind of zoom in. You can see there, sort of your registers are down here at the bottom, right? And there's some cross probing to the layout. You can do from here as well. You can select an object and it'll select in the layout, sort of as we were doing before. But it lets you see, the main quality you want in a clock tree is sort of the time from the top to the bottom is the latency, and generally less is better. And probably, maybe even more importantly, is how uniform are the bottom level. Are those
Hmm.
that's basically your clock skew, right? So the more skewed these are, the more hold time problems you're likely to run into.
Yeah.
Now, this is a pretty small design, so it's relatively flat. The whole delay is not very large, but on a bigger design, it can get more interesting, especially once you throw in macros and things that make the clock tree forced to go around obstructions.
Hmm.
It can be a useful viewer.
Yeah.
Um,
That looks cool.
yeah, I know it's got highlighting or tooltips as you
Are
highlight
these
around.
your custom buttons that you've got at the top?
Oh yeah, right. So like for me, I have, if I just want to see the power grid, or if
Oh,
I
is
want
that
to
is
just see instances,
I
just
thought
shows.
PG might stand for pretty good.
Reset is just my default view, how I like to see things, or see just the clocks.
Yeah.
Um, the select's just the IOs. So yeah, those are my little extra buttons
Okay.
that I like.
Yeah.
Um,
Maybe you can drop your extra buttons tickle script startup for us so that anyone interested can
sure, I'll
get
send you a
the
copy. You
custom
can
map buttons.
attach it. Yeah.
Nice.
It looks something like this, right? Just kind of say if the GUI, and then whatever I have turn on and off different visibility controls. Pretty
Yeah.
simple stuff.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
but that's very useful that you can customize stuff and
yeah.
have it there
So
for you.
I'll send you my .OpenROAD. You
Yeah.
can uh, attach it.
Nice. Great.
Okay.
Okay. So, thanks very much, Matt, for your time. Thanks for helping me out with the
Yeah, you're
OpenROAD
welcome.
GUI. Yeah, I feel
Thanks for.
like it's something that it's a tool that I should be using a lot more than I do, and it's just like because I'm always installing OpenROAD as part of OpenLane,
Mhm.
and then running in a Docker. That has like historically caused some problems with
Right.
the way that it gets launched, but
I hope we've
we're nearly there
mostly
now.
worked through those. I mean, there were a bunch of Docker security things where it doesn't want to let you pop
Mm,
something up outside of the container. But
yeah,
I think we've kind of worked through that. But if not, and yeah, OpenLane itself probably could use a few more switches to make it a little easier to understand. Do you need
yeah,
dash tag, or how do I load an earlier steps
yeah,
results?
yeah,
But
yeah.
capabilities
Well,
are all.
we'll write this video up with a
Yeah,
little blog post that you can put on the OpenRoad
yeah,
website, and
yeah.
recommend that people go and check out what's there at OpenRoad. And yeah, just want to say thanks again for your time, Matt.
You're welcome. It's been good.
Cheers.
Cheers.